Hi everyone, welcome to Badman Irons. So tomorrow we are playing against Leicester City, who are in a little bit of a precarious situation at the moment. It's a massive game for those guys. It's a dead rubber for us, but we'll look to dissect what we think what could happen in the game, what might not happen, and also what we'd like to see gearing up to the biggest game probably in most of our some of our younger fans' history. For some others, they have seen us in finals before, but not in a major European one. So, yeah, sit back, guys, and we'll discuss this game first before we ever get to the big one. The Sloth, last game of the season. How do you feel about it being the last game of the season and us finally being safe?
I think it's a bit of a deceptive one, to be honest with you. I think it kind of masks a lot of the problems that we've had this season. Look, it's been a fantastic month or two, and it's been a horrific series of months leading up to this. So, the fact that we could finish above Chelsea, potentially.
Yeah, I know.
And the fact that we could, get this 12th place under our belt kind of thing. And I think really does hide just how poor we've been for long periods of the season. But
yeah, I completely agree. It reminds me of Bilic. Remember when with Bilic we had the same thing where we were relegation fodder almost for the entire season, but in the last tail end, and then we pulled it around, finished like 14, 16, and just finished at the table, and it was deemed acceptable. We go again.
Well, look, I think the big problem is it's yet again another missed opportunity. And we see, I'm not saying that there have been mistakes in terms of the manager. I'm not going to pick on him too much because we've done enough of that this season, and he's got us to a European final, so he is doing certain things right. He's got us safe. However, I do think that in terms of the recruitment, we could have really taken a big step forward this season. I said it last January when we chose again not to sign anyone, and for some reason this year we did a very similar thing, but chose to sign the wrong players entirely. Which again, I'm not saying it's anything against these players personally. I just think our setup is wrong in terms of recruitment. But I think unless we win the Conference League, we really have to look at this as a missed opportunity this season, because we should have been really pushing for that top 7, top 8 place. Even with the European campaign under our belt, and at the same time, I think it really hides the fact that this is not a very good season in terms of the league.
Yes, I think it's fair to say you don't agree with the sentiment of that finishing, or Moyes has been saying that finishing, say, 12th or 14th and getting to Europa League final, or Europa Conference League final, sorry. Many fans would have accepted that. I personally am with you. I don't think that.
Look, I think
even really.
I don't think that's enough unless we win it. No. I don't mean that in an arrogant way at all. I just think you can finish 12th, and 9 out of 10 times for West Ham, that's going to be a decent finish. But you've spent 180 million pounds in the summer, and you've not really seen any improvement on the pitch. You've gone in a worse competition, and you've gone on one step further against opposition who, are a level below what we played last season. So I think unless you win
level
that
what we
cup.
play, level below what we play in the Premier League. If we're being completely honest,
Yeah. I mean, look, I like Fiorentina. That is going to be a tough game, and
Yeah,
we'll touch on that in another video. But let's face it, as a whole, the sort of quality of side, not individuals, because there have been some good players in those sides, but the quality of side has been, either relegation worthy or championship level. So at best, to be kind to a few of them. And I just think that it's a very easy scapegoat to say, oh look, isn't it? We've got us 12th and we're in a Europa Conference League final, and look, it's going to be incredible. That final is going to be amazing, and I think if you offered any football club who aren't one of the bigger boys a European final, whatever the level, they're going to take it. But you can't just dangle that carrot in front of fans and say, you should be happy with this, you should be happy with this, because that's not how football works, and it's not how you should measure your success, in my opinion anyway.
No, I totally agree with you. I think when you look at the side of the draw we had, you look at the teams we played, that in itself, to me, as a minimum requirement, was to get to the final based on what we had to play during this tournament. So I don't view it as big of an achievement as others. I think it's an achievement to be in a final, but I would not put as much weight on the performances or those wins as maybe others, because of what we've had to play in which to get there. I think it was just a minimum requirement essentially to get to the final based on what we've had to play. It's not arrogance. I just think it's, as you rightly said, we paid 180 million in the summer. Of course we should be going a step further against lesser opponents compared to what the competition was in last season. So absolutely.
I think the only thing that people can really kind of fall back on is that this is the same core group of players who pushed themselves so far last season, and then you do kind of look at it and you think, well, where's the progression? Because as I said, you're in a lower competition, you're against lesser sides, and you've progressed to a final. Yeah, you've gone to a final, but it's not against teams like Sevilla. It's not against teams like Frankfurt. These are teams who would be struggling to push to the Premier League. If I'm being totally honest, apart from and we've been lucky again that we haven't really faced teams who had the quality of Fiorentina. We haven't faced teams who've had the quality of Nice and Basel throughout this competition. So it's I think it's going to mask over quite a lot of the problems in this side and in the recruitment and in the setup of the club as a whole if we do finish 12th. And if we win the competition, I'm going to be ecstatic. I'm going to be,
Absolutely. I don't think you're wrong at all in what you're saying, Sloth. I completely agree. I think if we finish 12th, it does mask what has otherwise been an incredibly poor season. And to be, to look at achieving over Chelsea, for instance, say if there is that 3-4 goal swing, I think it needs to be for us to go above them. Obviously, we're also relying on, say, Wolves to lose or draw for us to get there. If that happens, to celebrate finishing 12th or finishing above Chelsea also just seems to me, I don't want to say pathetic, because I think that's probably too harsh, but I do think it's ridiculous to be cheering or celebrating over a period against a team that has been so dysfunctional, so poor, and hold it up as some sort of bastion of success. It's not. You've achieved against a team that have essentially imploded several times this year and got one of the worst Premier League managers in history for Chelsea. Like that's not an achievement.
Like I think it's hilarious because any other season you offer West Ham fans the chance to finish above Chelsea, and it's like, oh yeah, we'd bite your hand off. But this season, as you said, it's been such a car crash. I know quite a lot of Chelsea fans, and I don't have this embedded hatred of any club really, apart from Millwall.
Mine is Spurs. That's my
Yeah,
embedded
well,
hatred.
I've been to the training ground there. I've seen the setup, and it's incredible. I've been lucky enough to meet numerous players. I don't have this hatred of me. You can say whatever you like. It makes me some Leicester fan or whatever. But got tickets to the final, so. But anyway,
you absolute dolly bird.
Hey, it's been said. So that it's just one of those things where when you measure how a season's going, if you're saying you're finishing above Chelsea, firing on all cylinders, then that's incredible. If you're finishing above Arsenal or Tottenham, who are battling for fourth, as they have been, then that's an amazing season. But when you have, let's face it, probably the biggest fallout publicly of any Premier League football side in the past decade, like I would probably say. It's probably an even bigger fallout than when we had the bloody Icelandic biscuit barons. So it probably is, but I don't really think that's anything you can celebrate. It's nice, and it's that sort of rivalry and bit of banter. But next season. We're not going to kid ourselves that we're probably going to be challenging them. You can't kid yourselves of that.
Exactly. And I think when you look at overall, the bread and butter is the Premier League, and quite frankly, it hasn't been good enough. You can't spend that much money and regress. I know people would then like to use the Europa League, Conference League, as we were committed on multiple fronts. It's like, but that was a B team who played in that tournament right up until the end. So the form in the league is largely utterly inexcusable.
It is irrelevant at the end of the day if you don't win.
It's absolutely irrelevant, as you say. And then we've regressed in the Premier League. There's no two ways of doing it. You can't, no matter how you want to dress it up, or I simply, in my own good conscience, I can't dress it up. There's been a huge regression. There's been huge failures, from recruitment down to tactics, down to just development of players or the regression of certain players. And talking of regression, the team we're playing, Leicester. What? See that segue? That was beautiful.
That was seamless. Oh, wonderful!
So good. I've ruined it now with this, but it was seamless. But the regression we've seen in Leicester is incredible. If we look at this season, obviously the Premier League season, both played 37 games, 4 places between us. There is 7 points. Now, normally we'd be going, us above Leicester. Okay, that means a good season. 7 points between us. Again, that looks really good. Then you go into the wins column and you go, well, we've only got 11. We've got 40 points. They've got 8 and they've got 31 points. And then you start to realize that isn't a good season. For the two teams, we're considering what we've done in the last few years as both clubs. Obviously, Leicester, former Premier League champions, last year won the FA Cup. Looked like they were going, again, great guns to continue that development. The regression has been incredible. I guess there's only so many times you can keep selling your star players and hoping and expecting to keep going. But
well, look, I'm also gonna. I might again upset a few people here, but I just think I think Brendan Rodgers has been long put on this pedestal of just. I don't know whether it's stat numbers or whatever hides this mediocrity that is Brendan Rodgers, because he is just such an overrated manager. And when you are looking at getting someone in, he brings in a different style, which is basically just keep the ball and move it about in move it about amongst yourselves. And that's all I can imagine his team talks are, because he.
Oh no! To be fair, he does talk a lot about character.
Oh yeah. Well, he's certainly a character. I mean, I can tell you some stories that he used to drive forklifts in a in a very posh supermarket chain warehouse near me. So yeah, he's one of those managers who I just think is absolutely useless. He seems to be he's self-destructive because he can't coach the defence, and you saw that when Liverpool capitulated in the title charge. You know, they had the best front three, I think, of any side at the time, and they just capitulated at the back because he has no idea how to coach a defence. He has no idea how to set up a midfield that might actually be able to withstand a counter attack or work against a press. And all he relies on is the name players he has to get him out of a hole. And even then, he falls out with players left, right, and centre.
Yeah.
And I think I feel sorry for Leicester fans because look, they've had a wonderful few years and very tough year as well in there. And they are one of the great examples of how to run a club, in my opinion. And they came out of nowhere and they got this huge windfall. And they've had a huge intake of money where they've been able to sell players and move some along, but also take in great amounts of revenue that they wouldn't have been able to. And they've put that money into the key foundations of the club. Now, they know full well that if they go down, which is looking very likely, they're probably not going to have to. They don't have to worry about their future. They've got an owner who loves the club, and
you said apparently that they are in financial problems if they do get relegated. Much like I think pre-COVID as well. They are. I think there is some talk that actually relegation could be very bad for them financially. However, they do have assets, obviously.
Yeah, they. This is the thing where I think the owner is so invested in terms of himself personally. I don't think he's not just gonna look to asset strip. Mm-hmm. So he might look to sell off other assets to help the club, but I've heard nothing in terms of him actively looking for buyers or even looking to just strip the club in other ways. So I think in that sense, they're very lucky. It's a horrible thing to be relegated, so I don't want to sound like I'm downplaying it at all. But I think the league would be worse off without them. To be honest, I do like Leicester. It's a nice place as well.
I agree. I think over the years they've been a breath of fresh air. When they won the Premier League again, it was great for the league. It's probably that little bit of that injection of and that self-belief to all other clubs that maybe something is possible. A bad season from big clubs, maybe you can capitalize if you get things just right. You can, you can make things happen. And you mentioned Rodgers self-imploding. There was talks that part of that came with how then transfers changed. He started to move away from the analytics side, the side that had been bringing in such great players, and he decided he wanted to start to be in charge. So the likes of Vestergaard and so on, I think, were players that he brought in that have ultimately flopped. And once they've moved away from that kind of aspect, they've struggled. And they've also seen backroom staff leave as well as a result of these types of changes. So that implosion from the manager has reverberated around the club. And they're in dire straits.
I think probably the biggest problem for them this year has just been the totally inept decision making when it came to a goalkeeper. Everyone knew Kasper Schmeichel was leaving. He made it pretty clear as well. And there were problems there. Like, even him moving to Nice, he was reportedly well overweight, and the Nice staff weren't happy at all with the condition that he was in. So much, I think, that they refused to pay him for quite a few weeks until he actually got his shit together. But he it's one of these where, was it Danny Ward they stuck in goal?
Danny Ward. I think he's been the number one all season, to be honest.
And he just took far too long to settle and to do anything of note. And if if I'm being brutally honest, I think he is a large reason that they are where they are. And if you had a competent goalkeeper at all, I think that it would have been a case of they'd be 4 or 5 points better off, and you could even say that we'd be in the trouble, we'd be in the mires, or another side would be in their place. So I think that's really where they've struggled this season. But that again falls on Rodgers, who's constantly picking him and didn't bring in anyone in the summer who is an upgrade.
Yeah. So obviously going into this game, it's so tight at the bottom. Everton are obviously on 33 points with minus 24 goal difference. You've got Leicester and Leeds on 31 points each. Both, Leicester on minus 18 goals, and you've got obviously Leeds on minus 27. So both Leeds and Leicester have to win to even have a chance to stay up. And obviously then relying on Everton, which to lose their game as well, with them playing Bournemouth last game of the season at home at Goodison. So obviously Everton could be relegated in front of their home fans. Same with Leicester. Leeds, I believe, are away at Tottenham. I think you could probably say Leeds are the one that's going to go. Of that three, you probably say the one that is almost probably guaranteed is going to be Leeds. Even if they win, it's you believe Everton might get the point to kind of tip them over the edge. And then you look at Leicester at the moment, you just think you don't know what kind of Leicester are going to turn up. Obviously, James Maddison has been probably the one real player to stand up for most of the season. But it's just been misfiring. Daka's misfired, but not necessarily played as much. Iheanacho again, another. We've seen Harvey Barnes has scored goals. It's 12 goals, but only 1 assist. So again, whilst he's scoring, he's clearly not helping enough in other facets of the game, which is something we complain about with one of our wingers. He does score, he does sometimes assist, but he does tend to go a bit in and out of games. And obviously, if you get that then on your other left-hand side, then it'll be interesting.
I mean, I wasn't going to mention it, but I do feel a bit like stirring the pot today.
Why not? Go. I've stirred the pot this morning on Twitter, so you might as well stir the pot now.
How quiet has it been with a certain Leicester central defensive mid who was once compared to Declan Rice? How it's been quiet for a long time now, isn't it? I used to get quite a lot of experts on Twitter telling me how much better Ndidi was than Rice, and how his passing was so much better. He was so much better on the ball, and it's all kind of a bit quiet over there, isn't it?
It's a complete fallacy. When you hear people talking about how great players are, you see United fans blowing smoke up the arse of Casemiro. Whilst Casemiro is a fantastic player, and a fantastic player for many a year at Real Madrid, he is not the same player that Real Madrid had. And when we play against Man United, Declan put him in his pocket and gave him a masterclass in midfield play. Now, United fans will then want to completely ignore that and will say that Declan Rice can't pass, he can't shoot, he can't do this, he can't do that. And yet he absolutely schooled a player that they hold up as essentially the best in the world. And, we've constantly seen that with Rice. He has done this. He done it against Liverpool earlier in the season as well. So it is always funny how we seem to go into games against many teams where they have their own defensive midfielder and we're told they are much better quality. Yes, as you're right. And Ndidi has been one of those players held up. And for a long time, it was also press kind of try to push that as a best defensive midfielder outside the top 6 kind of thing. And should one of these be, playing at a higher level? And Ndidi did do well, but he was never as good as Declan Rice. That, if we're completely honest, he's never been as good, never had a higher ceiling as Declan Rice, or as high a ceiling as Declan Rice has. Rice could play in any team in the world. It's a simple truth. He would be welcome in any team in the world. Ndidi, I don't think that really is the case. Yes, he could probably go to PSG, but PSG will tend to buy those types of players. They did it with Gay, but again, they tend to buy those players because they can use them in a squad, and they'll be happy to play in a squad that is PSG because it's PSG, right? But yeah, I think when you look at Leicester and you look at what's happened there, Tillemans has not nearly been the player they has. It's looks like a player who's known he's leaving all season. There's kind of at times for me played in that way as well, in that
Yeah,
not wanting to go completely 100% because doesn't necessarily want to potentially injure himself.
I think he's been the sort of like polar opposite of Dawson was for us. Where we kept a hold of Dawson and we said, look, we'll let you leave later on if we have a replacement lined up, which of course we didn't. But
no, as is tradition.
It was one of those things where it feels like he was just told, no, you're not going, and we're going to run your contract down. And he's done the complete opposite of what Dawson did, who played out his skin for us at times, and he's just kind of regressed and not bothered to do anything, and relied on the likes of Dewsbury Hall and other Leicester centre mids to kind of try and fill that void.
Yeah, I think I agree. And you look at them defensively wise as well. Pereira's not been the same kind of right back they have. From on the left hand side, again, it's been a bit hit and miss. Luke Thomas clearly has potential, but he's just not really seemingly hitting those heights that his early potential kind of shown when he came through as essentially the replacement for Ben Chilwell. And then again, the central defence, Soyuncu was all but ostracised, was going under Rodgers, and he's been brought back in. Feist hasn't really done much. He's maybe flattered to deceive at times. He's very much like a David Luiz, not just in hairstyle, but that type of player that you can have a good game one, isn't it? It's not as outrageous as theirs, though, Slav. But he's another one that he'll have a good game, but then there's always ricket. There's always feels like there is a ricket in him. There's a rashness and so on. And again, we've already talked about Danny Ward, but Danny Ward has been, especially at the start of the season, was awful for them. So, I do feel for Leicester. Well, I feel for their fans really, because they've seen a team that has been doing so well, but just to see it nosedive and crash so hard and so quickly. And I think we've seen the same this year. But we've just about managed to right the storm. I know some people attribute that to, because we kept our manager. I don't necessarily go with that. I think certain things and certain performances improved after, as has been well documented, the players taking conversations away from the club and having them themselves. Things seem to improve. So I think sometimes that heart to heart, and we've heard from former players talking around, players sometimes take responsibility and they just kind of move slightly away and take a bit more control. And I think we have probably seen that a bit more. I'm not completely discrediting Moyes' efforts in keeping us up, but again, it feels a bit false for me to praise keeping us in the league, because it is such a regression from last year. And then you look at like Leicester as well, and you just think it's such a fall from grace, but it's being in some ways, particularly for us, is being allowed, or there has been a level of excuses leveled in which to state that it's acceptable because of essentially the whataboutism. Oh yeah, we didn't go in the league, but what about the Europa League or Europa Conference League and Europa League last season? And it just seems.
I think the difficult one to kind of quantify is just what could we have done, what could have happened. And I've always been a fan of Unai Emery, but I do think if we had perhaps moved out Moyes over that winter period with the World Cup and brought in Unai Emery, we would probably be in the position that Aston Villa are. And you're talking about a manager who's won multiple European Cups, so I don't think anyone would really question that he would thrive in that competition as well. Now, is that realistic? Would it have been realistic? You can argue that. Are we as big a draw as Aston Villa? Well, I'm not even going to get involved in that debate. But the point is that, had certain changes been made, I think we could have done better this season in terms of the league. Now, again, it's something that if we win against Leicester, it's the cracks papered over, and I think we'll have done something that Leicester really looked like they were trying to do with their FA Cup win, and with their progress on multiple fronts in times. I think they perhaps didn't quite get the recruitment in their manager to take that step forward that we could well make if things in the summer go well. But it's a shame for them as a football club if they go down. But it's one of those funny games where I wouldn't be surprised if we put out a slightly weakened side and Leicester maybe nick a winner or something, and they stay up, and all the pelters that have been given to someone like Harvey Barnes or even Daka, suddenly all is forgiven because they've scored the winner that keeps them up.
Yeah.
But
so that in mind, going into the game, would you prefer to see a weakened team because of the fixture coming up for us, or would you rather us maybe, for lack of a better term, show the respect to Leicester and their fight for to stay in the league and go with an almost full strength team?
In the words of Grandpa Simpson, I think it's a little from column A and a little from column B. It's one of those where I think you've got to make this a priority to try and keep on that winning streak and keep that form up. Particularly where, Fiorentina have looked good in the league, but they did lose their final against Inter, and if we can beat Leicester and keep that good form going forward, that's going to be on their minds. So, I would probably,
I think 3 days before that. I think they've got a couple of games as well in the run up. So they've got a very busy schedule, Fiorentina.
Yeah, I think the only issue is that you and I both know full well that if he starts with a really strong side, that side is probably going to play 85 minutes. Those players aren't going to get subbed off at half time. They're not going to get subbed off at 60 minutes. They're going to play 85 minutes of football. Now, I would probably be looking at this as a chance to put a fairly strong side out and keep the core of who we are. But, Declan Rice is always going to start. Yeah. So give Flynn Downs a run out, or give someone else the opportunity to play in that role. Give Fornals a chance to play central.
Even like Lanzini, to give him his final Premier League game. Give him 90 minutes for what is possibly going to be his final Premier League game, or at least final Premier League game for us anyway.
Exactly. So give a player that opportunity and say, look, this is also your chance to really try and force your way into whether it's the bench, whether it's the substitutes or the final. Get yourself involved and show me what you can do. So I would be looking at maybe a 3/4 strength side sort of thing, where there's a couple of vital changes. You keep people like Declan Rice fresh. You keep someone like Antonio. You just protect from a knock or an injury, and give someone like Cornet a chance to shine.
I tend to agree. Personally, I'd like to see Fabianski start. I don't think he's going to play in the final. So again, I'd like to see Fabianski start. I think just because the fact that he's come back from injury, Soufal potentially probably most likely playing the final, but I think starting him would be a good shout. Yeah. Ogbonna, then maybe with Tilo Kehrer. Neither of them are likely to start, but again, two solid defenders. we can't risk Zuma.
No,
So against
exactly.
45 minutes and he's still laboured again. So whilst he needs minutes in his legs, it's probably best to, if anything, bring him in for a final 10, 15-minute run out in the game if really needs be. Probably Cresswell or Emerson on the left back position. I think that's probably fair. And then in the middle, as you say, Rice is unlikely to be dropped. So, he'll start. I would personally play Danzini. I don't think he drops Souček. The Marathon Man never is dropped. So again, I think
No.
Souček. But again, as you say, column A, column B. So it makes sense. And then as you say, on the wing, I would go for Cornet. I think Cornet deserves that chance to play there. Personally, I think we should give Kadua, give him a start on the right-hand side over Bowen. Let Bowen have a rest. Or at least if you're going to play Bowen, bring him off after 40, maybe 60 minutes and bring on young Kadua. I think, he's won the Dylan Tombides award for best youth player this season over Mubama. He's been the captain of the under-18s. The kid deserves some recognition. And it's the last game of the season and it's a dead rubber. He deserves some recognition. And personally, I would put Mubama up top. In my opinion, I think we know what Ings can do. Ings actually had quite a decent game last time he started up front. I think I was actually quite happy with Ings. I thought he did really quite well. And the pass for Bowen's goal, I thought was an absolute beauty, to the point of it looked like Fornals the way the ball was played.
Yeah.
And again, give Danny Ings a rest. Give Antonio, and also put Mubama as a starter in against a competitive team and see how he does, because you never just know. You never know that he may be someone we have to call upon in the final. You just don't know what's going to happen in the lead up. Injuries might happen. You might have to call on someone unexpectedly. And
well, Leicester are going to be scrapping for their lives as well. You know, I'm not saying Leicester are a dirty side in any way. It's not what I'm trying to imply.
But it's true though, isn't it? They're gonna fly into things because it's do or die time for them. It's you have to go for it, because if they don't, they're going to go down with a whimper. And I don't think that their fans deserve that, for one. But also, I don't think the players will want to go down without at least looking like.
Can you imagine anywhere with Jamie Vardy in a dressing room going down with a whimper? Like he's going to be in people's ears, isn't he? All week he's going to be trying to.
He'll probably punch himself in the face every single game, saying like every single training session, "This is what's coming, lads. If you don't, this is not going to be on me anymore."
Sneaking Red Bull into the punch or whatever. Like.
No, I completely agree. I think they're gonna look to snap into tackles. It's do or die for them, and to risk players just for match fitness, because that's really what it is for us at this point. It's match fitness, trying to keep that momentum going. But as you said, little from column A, little from column B is probably the way that we should go. And we should have it in us to get a victory. Not because I don't think Leicester are any good, or their first team players are, if we play an /AB hybrid team, is going to outplay Leicester. It's just at the moment Leicester have just got such little confidence and belief in what they do that if you go a goal ahead, it really could. It could get toxic in the fan base, because again, it's that realization of if they go 1-0 down, they are right in the mire. At that point, they are relegated until obviously they have to win. So it could go one or two ways. If they was to go 1-0 down, it could force the crowd to be quite raucous and bring Leicester on, but it could also see them go the other way. And as we've seen this season, they've crumbled quite a bit at times under the pressure. But yeah, I probably think that's probably a good place to leave it, to be honest. We've probably talked more about everything else other than the game. but I do think it's going to be an interesting one. I guess the last thing to ask, Sloth, what is your prediction for a scoreline?
Despite what I just said about us, how I think we should have, field the side, I think we'll probably go strong. I think we probably win 2-0. And I'm going to go confident. So I think we could potentially keep this good form going for the final.
Yeah, I think if we win it, I think we could win it. I do think it'd be like a scrappy 1-0. I think, as you say,
Yeah.
Leicester are going to come flying into everything. If they don't, then I guess shame on them as players. But I think a scrappy 1-0 will do it. And it's great confidence to take on into the next game, and we can dust ourselves off a bit about this season. And after to the 7th of June, we can have a real, I guess, come to Jesus moment as to what the hell happened over the course of this season and where we go from here. But yeah, guys, if you've liked this video, please do like, please do subscribe. All of those things that we always say, please do share our content. It all helps. Thank you for watching us over the course of this season as well. Obviously, we've got one more game that we are going to cover. And we will keep doing stuff, obviously, over the summer as well. But massively appreciate everyone who's followed us, who's watched our stuff this year, who's engaged. It's been quite cathartic, I think, definitely for me. There has for Sloth as well. And, you know, we're all going to be in Prague. Whether we've all got tickets is another question, but we're all going to be in Prague, you know, enjoying and savouring what is going to be a brilliant moment in our most recent history. So, yeah, for everyone who's watched this season, massively appreciate it. Thank you very much. Let's go on and get a win tomorrow. And let's end the season with 2 more highs. And let's hope for the second one is the highest of highs. But anyway, thanks very much, everyone. And we'll see you again soon.